they're BYUI students. So
Cool. Sounds great.
got that from 8:30 to 9:30.
Okay, is it 6 o'clock yet?
Hold on, I'm starting the YouTube so we can be live. There we go. Okay.
Hello, Nick and Heidi.
Hello, how are you?
Old, fat, and ugly. Some themes never change.
And
Thanks for letting us be on the call.
I had somebody tell me today, you know, they call it COVID-19. It's because of the 19 pounds we're all gaining.
Yeah. Yep. That works.
So we have Andy, Jim, Alicia, Julie, Kay. Ashley's supposed to be coming on, Dean. And Nate is excused. And Jeff's supposed to be getting on as well. So it's your meeting. You can start whenever.
Well, we need 1, 2, 3.
You have
we need
4
one more.
commissioners.
So let's wait for a second so we have a quorum.
Hey, Jill.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we've got a minute. I was wondering that on the meeting notice on, you know, that you send out on the agenda, at the top where it says meeting via YouTube Thursday, May 7th, can you put the meeting ID on that one? You
No,
can't.
the notice that we send out, we don't want residents to hop in.
If you look on that paper, you can watch
It's
it on
used with
YouTube.
the screen. We want them to be able to make comments through our YouTube.
Oh,
That's why we're going live on YouTube, so that way they can see, they can.
yeah.
It's
Makes perfect. Yeah.
what's on the screen.
Makes perfect sense. I just need to pay more attention. I was used to
Show, please.
like our meeting number, it's always the same, so I'll look in advance. So
We
hello.
we
Hi.
had a meeting a few weeks back with
I think
the
so.
League of Cities and Towns, and in the middle of the meeting, just as it was getting started, all of a sudden the screen was taken over by something highly inappropriate. So it was very embarrassing. Yeah, I was watching and saw the whole thing, and I was mortified. I wish I could take a brain shower and clean all that out. It was bad. So that's why we're doing it in this format. We're trying to respect people and help keep them safe and all of those things. So, but it does limit us in our ability to interact with each other a little bit. And then getting the notice out can be problematic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. I read an article on that of people like getting into Zoom and doing inappropriate things, and yeah, that's too bad.
Trying to get this glare out of my eyes.
Okay, so we have the Hadleys. Are you guys on?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Craig North and then Nick Cutler. So we have all the applicants online. Ashley, are you there? And Nick and Andy, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
He's here.
Ashley,
There we
can I
go.
ask you to start us with a word of prayer, please? Or a thought? Yes, you.
Yes, I can say a prayer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Our dear, kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we thank thee for allowing us to meet tonight. Please bless that we will be able to do what is in the best interest of a city and the people. Please bless that we will be good servants for that. Please bless that we will be kind and gracious and have that on our hearts tonight as we do our best to serve the city. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. And Jill, if you'll just move off to the side a few inches so we can see the flag, we'll go ahead and stand for the national anthem. And I'll start us in that. It's always appropriate. We have to do as much as we can in these unnormal times to be normal. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the
Of the United States of America.
America.
and to
And
the
to the
republic
to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
and
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Thank you. That was kind of awkward. I apologize for the delay. We just have so many people on here, so welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
So Jeff, I think we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3,
Well, if-
4.
Dean doesn't show up, Jeff can be up.
Okay, good. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everybody for being with us today. I have to open my packet again.
Keith, with all the lights off in the background, you look like you're celestialized.
Yeah, I can't stand it.
You've got that heavenly glow about you.
Yeah, that's why I like using Teams, because I use my other camera and I don't have that heavenly glow. I have that evil empire look. So we'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us in prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. We'd like to begin today by approving the agenda and minutes from the April 16th Planning Commission meeting and approving tonight's agenda. Do I hear a motion for this, for both items?
I'll motion to approve last time's
Thank you.
agenda.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
We're a part of that.
Thank you. The first item is, so Bill, I'm going to ask a question. Can I?
Yeah.
Administratively, how do we work this where we have 3 legislative items and they're all public hearings? Do we open, close, open, close, open, close? Or
Yeah,
can
we
we
should-
open and remain open until we're done?
Why don't we open and remain open until you're done with all the presentations and everything and you're ready to ask for a motion to approve or recommend approval or denial of the item. I think that makes more sense. And then I'm going to be monitoring comments on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you'd please comment in the box provided on YouTube, I will be monitoring that and I will read those into the record as they come across. So if you're participating through YouTube, please comment on YouTube and I'll be watching and read that into the record.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll begin. We're going to have a discussion decision on proposed zone change from RE20 to RE15 located at 3058 North, 1000 West, parcel 17-336-0001. The applicant is Douglas Hadley, and Jill, you're presenting.
Yes, so let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so we have we're doing Hadley. Come on. All right, so it's located just right off of 1000, the corner of 1000, 3100 North. Currently, Doug's parents own the parcel and it is in an RE20 zone. And it's actually quite a large RE20 lot.
It is.
The future land use shows for 2 to 3 units per acre, which would be the equivalent of an RE20 or an RE15 zone. And here's their proposed. They want to do it as an RE15 lot, but then be able to split one lot off of it so that they can build a home that they're wanting on that property. The important thing in order to even see if this was even feasible was to have them draw it out to make sure both lots would at least equal up to RE15. And they were actually able to do a large lot for the equivalent of an RE20 lot at the front, but it would still be an RE15 zone. And lot 11 is what they're calling it, would be where they would be able to build their home. It does fit all the requirements for an RE15. And if you notice, all these darker green are already RE15 lots. So it would match with a lot of the lots surrounding it. This is actually called Jensen Estates subdivision. So as staff, we're recommending approval, just as it does fit the general plan and it does fit the zone that they're requesting.
So I have a question. This is an advantage, I guess, to the property owner because they have 3100 North that fronts or actually runs their side lot, correct?
Correct.
The other property owners wouldn't have that availability or luxury to split, would they?
Correct. They've been really lucky to have that so that this other lot would have frontage where these other ones, you're correct, would not be able to do that.
Yeah. So,
Okay, this time I'll ask for a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll go ahead and make that motion to open for public hearing.
Thanks, Commissioner Cummings. In a second.
I'll second that we open for the public hearing.
Thank you. We're now in public hearing. Any comments that anyone would like to make? This is the time if there's anybody viewing on YouTube.
Just to remember, it does have a 20-second delay.
Okay.
This is,
Waiting for that, may I ask a question? Can you remind me, what is the fence ordinance for the RE20 or the RE15 for the area?
A fence,
Yeah, fence ordinances.
it depends if it's a corner lot. A fence, there's a little bit more to it depending on just a zone.
Is
Basically
chain link
7
fence
foot
is
zone.
currently allowed in the area?
Chain link fence, I'd have to pull that up and look. To be honest, I don't know.
Jill, could you go back to the view that shows more of the properties around?
Do you want the general plan?
No, right there. Okay. On the right, the big green property, is that just a field right there?
That is actually owned by, their last name is Gardner.
Okay.
It is considered a minor subdivision fixed and Rocking G, I believe. They have a barn and their idea is to have kind of a horse corral in there.
Okay.
He
Okay.
recently added that to his property a couple months ago, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
right here, there's gonna be a jog out a little bit. So because he has a pool and his actual living residence, where'd my mouse go? Is right here.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
Okay.
Just so you're aware, I'm showing on YouTube that there are 6 people watching right now, and there have been no comments so far.
Okay.
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
are we-
we can.
This is Doug Hadley. As of right now, when Alan Hadley, my father, when he bought this lot 10 years ago, he knew that there was a road that was going to go in there, and that was his idea of his plan is to split it. And so when he told me that, that's when a little light bulb came on in my head and asked, well, can my wife and I buy that from you? And also they made him put in a chain link fence on the side of his yard when they made Jensen Estates. Pleasant View City actually had that installed. And so Alan does have a chain link that's going to go up and kind of where the property line stops. We're going to turn that. That's kind of where his chain link is going to stop, because that's of course where my front yard will be. And I don't want to have a fence in my front yard. So.
Hey, Andy, I looked up the restrictions for chain link fences in the city, and there are none except in commercial areas. So in residential areas, they're permitted, and the city changed the height restriction to 7 feet. So you can have an up to 7-foot chain link fence.
Okay, I just knew there was some restrictions and I just didn't know what that was in there. And I just wanted to make sure before we move forward on that. So thank you for looking that up.
Okay, no questions, Bill?
Again, we're still holding at 6, of which I am 1, and we have dropped down to no comments. No comments or questions so far.
We're down to 4 because me and Bill are on there.
Oh,
There you go. That's 2 of us. So
All right, then. With that, we'll go ahead and have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll motion that to close the public hearing.
And a
I can second that.
Thank
Who
you.
was
All
that?
in favor, say aye.
Me.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 2 on the agenda is a discussion decision on proposed zone change from A2 to RE15 located at 3225 North.
Oh,
1000
yeah.
Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa.
We need to do a vote on that, right?
Oh,
yeah,
that's
we need
right.
to call
Thanks
for a
keeping
vote
me
on
the straight and narrow.
Jill, will you
on a-
take down your screen
the
so we can see
recommendation.
everybody? Take down the split screen.
I apologize, guys. I knew that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, let's see, I wish I need my paper up here, but I'll make a motion that we approve or recommend approval of the split for the subdivision of 3058 North, 1000 West, low density 2 to 3 units per acre for the Hadley subdivision as approved with the findings and the recommended by staff.
Thank you, Andy. So we have a motion and a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I apologize. Now we'll go on to item number 2. This is a discussion decision for proposed zone change from RA2 to RE15 located at 3225 North, 1000 West. The applicant is Craig North. And Jill, you're presenting for us, please.
Yes. And let me pull the screen up again. All right, so we have this. So just north of that property, we have the North, Craig North applying for the rezone there. It is at the corner of 3200 North and 1000 West. It's currently A2. So it's a little bit of a larger lot. And the general plan does show for 2 to 3 units per acre, which again is equivalent to an RE20 or an RE15. If you notice all these green, darker green, these are RE15, so it would match through the area. This is the idea of what they, the concept idea that they're wanting for dividing it into 4 different lots. Again, with the amounts, it does fit the RE15 size. So staff is actually recommending approval on this one as well.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Jill?
Now, can you go back to the overall view of the neighboring properties again?
That one or this one?
That one.
Okay.
So there's. Did it,
Ask
is it
away.
just barely, is it just like, tell me the like, are they just looks fine, but it just looks crammed in there. But then I look over closer to the east and it like, that's the size of the lots. So I guess when you compare it to the lots below it, when there's like 3 of them, but that one on the corner is a little bigger.
Yeah.
Then there's a street. It makes sense. It just looked
Yeah, so
crammed for a
Ashley,
minute, but it looks,
Ashley, if you look at this area over there or these lots over here on this side,
yeah, that's what I was
It's-
looking at.
yeah,
Those ones are kind of small. But
Yeah,
if it's the amount,
yeah,
if it's the right size, then there you go. I know
yeah,
their
that one-
backyard.
that-
Those guys.
That lot right there in
backyard-
particular looks kind of smallish, but these are all 15,000 square feet lots, so they're
Yeah.
not small lots.
No, I know. It just looks small. It's good.
Yeah. so they're the same lot
I walk by there every day. I think it'll be great. Be beautiful houses.
right here. It's the same lot size that they'll be.
Yeah.
We can't see where you're pointing.
I'm assuming you're pointing over here against Casey Lane.
Yes, I am.
So these lots, some might be more than 1,500. The minimum for RE15 is 1,500 square feet.
And is that how much each one of those are? I mean, what are the dimensions, I guess, is like, are they
I
each?
think you mean 15,000.
That's what I meant. 15,000.
Yeah.
I know.
That I noticed when I was examining it is that they didn't identify the square footage for each lot. And if you divide the total square footage by evenly by 4, they all come out to be 15,573 feet.
That's awesome math. I love it. Okay.
Oh, can I,
That's my question.
Jill, can I just quickly ask, the frontage for the, I guess it's the Smith home, the one that on the front,
Mm-hmm.
that one will still enter to 1,000.
Correct.
The other 3 homes will enter back to the Mount Orchard.
Correct.
Where will that parcel A, who will take ownership of the parcel A? What will that stay with the Mount Orchard? What ends up taking place with that?
That is, I'm not sure exactly what the meaning of that one was. That's one of the questions that Dana is inquiring with the concept. They also apply for a concept application, which means we'll dig in and look at it as a subdivision aspect to see, does this work? What questions are we having? What things can they work on to clear it up for when they do come towards the preliminary application and they're really set in there.
Okay, and then I apologize because my screen doesn't blow up enough for me, and I tried to see the dimensions. And so I'll take do the dimensions for the frontages for all of these work enough to give us the 100 on the frontages? And then do we have enough? When I drove by there, it doesn't look like we're gonna have it's not a lot of depth. So will we have enough setback for all of these? I know that when the Joneses built their house, the lot that's behind all of these, when we built that, when we allowed the Jones to build theirs, they had to come to the and get a waiver for the before the committee, not this committee, but and get an adjustment so they could get a waiver because they didn't have enough frontage for theirs. Are everybody here going to have enough frontage and enough depth to get for all of these lots?
The frontage is at least 100 feet, all of them. Lot 2, it kind of curves, but it still does get that frontage. On the depth, yes, it looks like, they won't have a humongous house, but there's plenty of room for a setback for both the front and then from the rear. they will have plenty of room for a home. It just would take up most of the lot.
Yeah, it just depends on, the home will be somewhat limited in what size they can put on that particular lot so that they can have the setback.
But it is definitely doable. Like I could put my
Okay.
house there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So Jill, I have a question in regards to a 4-lot subdivision. Is there any water retention required?
That is one thing we're looking at with the concept. So I'm glad you looked at that. With these, the state does require that we do LID and some type of filter with the water, depending on how big the parcels are. And we do look at the retention or the detention aspect of it. So that will be something that we're actually looking at, and we're gonna get ready to call and schedule a meeting with Craig North to go over that concept.
I was wondering if that little piece that Andy was talking about earlier, if that could be used for such a retention if required.
That was my first thought. So
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Bill, any questions?
No comments or questions on YouTube. Still 6 people hanging in. Thanks for being faithful out there. No questions or comments on this one.
did we open a public hearing on that one?
We did.
Okay, good.
Now we're going to close it. So I'll entertain, well, maybe we didn't.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I'm sorry. I thought that we opened a public hearing.
We may want to hear from the applicant too, if he has anything to say.
Are you still here, Craig?
Yes, I am.
Hey, let me, what? There we go. There you are. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Craig.
Yeah, I can answer any questions as far as the future plans or the current design, or any other questions you have.
So Craig, if you get into it and you find that more property is needed for retention or detention, whatever the case may be, what would your plan be then? Would it be just to create 3 lots so that you would have that, or?
Yeah, if we have to. I mean, we would definitely look at that sliver just to the south of lot 1, if that's usable, and wouldn't have to encroach on the home or basically destroy the value of that lot with the home on it. That would be the first choice. Then we'd look at other options, but ultimately, yes, we just dissolve one of the lots if we needed to.
Okay.
Hey, commissioners, any questions, additional questions for the applicant? We're going to assume that we're in a public hearing. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing in regards to item number 2 on the agenda.
I'll motion to close.
And a second.
I'll go ahead. and second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Commissioners, any further discussion?
No.
This looks pretty
Not then.
straightforward. In a lot of ways, it's related to the first initiative. And I can't see, as long as the conditions are met that are stipulated in the plan, I can't see the reason why it wouldn't be, we wouldn't go ahead with a recommendation.
Mhm. And it does fall in with the general plan and the future land use map that we have been looking at. That falls within those parameters as far as size.
Okay, this is a recommendation to the city council to approve or deny the proposed change from an A2 to RE15. At this time, we'll entertain the motion if someone would have one, please.
I'll motion to approve that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
Recommending approval. I think that's what I heard her say.
That is what I said. Thank you. Thank
Word
you,
for
Paul.
word.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go to item number 3, discussion decision, proposed zone change from
Thank you.
CP1 to CP2 at 879 West Pleasant View Drive, parcel 17-062-0073 and 83 West Pleasant View Drive, parcel 17-062-0067. Applicant is Nick and Heidi Cutler, and Jill's presenting.
Make the motion that we open up the public hearing at this time.
You want to open the public hearing first? Okay. Have a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion
For
to
this
open the public hearing at this time.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that we open it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we're now in a public hearing, and Jill, you've got the table.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you this at the beginning. The difference with a residential versus commercial is it's a little harder to recommend or on any way for staff.
I told Jill, I wish we didn't have to make recommendations on these kinds of things because it puts staff in an uncomfortable position, but that's kind of our job, so.
I need you guys to realize is as staff, we have to look at the facts. So that's what's in your packet. And if we see any issues, we will recommend denial. You guys are the ones that it's all up to you. If you feel that this is the right area or the right thing for that spot, then you would recommend approval. If you don't feel right or something doesn't feel like it's the best time, that's where you would recommend denial. But again, this is all up to you guys. I hope you read your staff report. This is probably the thickest one. So let me share my screen so you can kind of see what, oh, come on. Okay, hold on. Okay. So
While she's pulling that up, Ann Arrington is also participating. Hello, Ann. And she has commented on YouTube that she'd like to hear from the applicant while the public hearing is still open. So probably after Jill gets done saying her presentation, if we could hear from the applicant, it looks like that's what Ann Arrington would like.
okay, so if you are not aware of where Straw Market is, it is on Pleasant View Drive, just east of 900 West. There is the Straw Market right here, and there is a vacant lot right now. Currently, it is a CP1. All the area around is RE20. There we go. The general plan shows neighborhood commercial. This is the hard part because we haven't really identified what you guys want to see in a neighborhood commercial area. So, but the proposed use is for a used car lot with the office in the basement of Straw Market. That's the reason why they're doing both lots. Sorry, wrong way. But what I wanted to point out with that is the used car lot is if recommended approval and Nick decides to do that and puts it in, that's great. One thing I need you guys to look at is everything in that zone, because once you allow that zone to be, you're allowing anything possible in that zone to be there. Again, this is with any commercial. This is what I would highly, and can't stress to you guys enough, to look at the whole list, which was provided to you in your staff report. So with that is what I have as the presentation. Just make sure you look to see if everything in that zone is something that you are wanting and willing to have in that area. Again, the staff doesn't see any issue with the used car lot. But again, that's why we have you guys and the city council to kind of see what you guys feel would be best there.
Should be remembered, and I'm just going to add on a little bit to what Jill said, that all of the uses that are permissible in the CP2 zoning district would be allowed if this zone change were approved. So these applicants would like to do a used car lot, and that's great. But there are a whole host of other uses that could be considered and would have to be allowed if the zone change were approved. So that's just one thing to keep in your back pocket as you're considering all of these things.
So the things we should really look at is where it says it's not allowed in CP1 and in CP2 it is permissible. That's what those are the ones we should look at. What I'm kind of basing my, because otherwise it's a whole list and lots of them are already permissible. So I'm not gonna take my time to look at what's already permissible. I would look at what is now going to be changing.
That's just one facet.
Yeah.
That of what is permissible. And Keith, do you want me to wait?
No, you're fine. We're in a public hearing.
Okay, just a couple questions that I have besides what is permissible. And so planning the staff, the recommendation to approve is based on what, if they meet the requirements. That doesn't say the recommendation to approve is because this is what the city necessarily wants. That's where you guys come in.
That's
and
right.
what you decide if this is an appropriate place. And just because something meets the requirements or doesn't meet the requirements doesn't necessarily dictate what your answer is. I would strongly recommend you looking at the general plan of what the residents wanted their city to look like, of what they wanted in there or whatever else, if that is, and based on what people have given you feedback for. The other part of it is Bill, what, and we couldn't find this today, what in our code governs is there anything that we list as regulatory regulations that governs used car lots in our city?
Well, we do have nuisance ordinances and things that would keep.
Does that have hold over used car lots?
Of course, it has hold over everything in the city. And that's why they're not even in the zoning ordinance. They're in a whole separate ordinance. Mm-hmm. I'm looking up, and Ann Arrington has posted, if I could tell them what are some of the uses in the CP2 zoning district that are
Lounges.
allowed.
Well, I had
There's a
looked
lot.
that up, including like welding, tobacco shops, which anymore tobacco shops, that could be vaping. Could that also
Vape shops,
be?
yes.
That could also be, well, now that marijuana is legal, I mean, tobacco shop, roller skating rinks. There are a number of things, not that would necessarily be planned, but say a used car lot went in and it ended up not being a successful venture. So at that point, somebody could look at selling it, and you would be selling it to anybody who are within these other parameters. I've got a concern that on the general plan here, future land use map, it said it calls for the property to be neighborhood commercial. And then it goes on and says part of that designation is Neighborhood commercial uses are encouraged and preferred to be located on the eastern side of Highway 89 in the vicinity of major intersections. You know, along Pleasant View Drive there is no way that you can call that a major intersection. Right?
No, but you might look at what is around that area to see if that would fit your pickleball courts, your park, your church, your neighborhood grocery store. Look at, it's not an intersection, but I would, again, look at what is around there and would it fit?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, the whole neighborhood commercial, it's fairly vague and open to interpretation of what somebody deems neighborhood commercial. We have to look that there are a number of residences there, and most used car lots, one concern I have is they tend to need to be well lit at night. We already have pickleball courts that are well lit, but we have residences there that could be bothered by lighting that would need to be on probably all night for safety issues with.
I could speak to that a little bit if you'd like me to.
Sure.
So I've had MVED, they're who governs the used car lots for the state of Utah. I had them come out and look at the lot just to see if they would approve it if you guys ended up approving it. The lights that are on the side of Straw Market right now would suffice for the lighting they need. It just needs to light up the sign that would be on the side of Straw Market. So we wouldn't need to add any additional lighting for the used car lot.
Hey, Keith?
Yes.
I had a couple of thoughts from Ann Arrington watching on YouTube. The first question was, are they asking for both parcels to be changed to our CP2? The answer to that is yes. The other question was, Tremont and Harrisville have small community car lots. How many cars is the applicant planning on having?
Could I speak to that a little, or?
Yes, please.
Is now okay?
Please do.
Great, thank you so much. We're really appreciative to be a part of this meeting, and we love owning the Straw Market. It's been a fun adventure, minus COVID-19. So we are loving owning it. We're loving being part of Pleasant View City. My background is the car business. I've been in it for the last 12 years since my mission. And so, you know, your concerns about it succeeding. I've been a buyer. I've ran a dealership. Obviously, there's unknowns that happen, but we know that we can make a go of it. Our focus there is the Straw Market and continuing to beautify the Straw Market. I don't know how many of you drive by there, but we've put a lot into it in the 4 months that we've owned it. We just want to continue to put back into it. We want the Straw Market to be the main focus there. Really, we want to make sense of that vacant lot. The previous owner kind of let it just grow, and whatever happened. As you can see, we've smoothed it out. We want to have additional parking for the park next door, and just make sense of the cars that just kind of end up there. So we want to make sure that they can park right, have overflow for the Straw Market. Really what we're hoping to do is have maybe 10 cars along the front of the vacant lot. And then along the back of it would be overflow parking for the park and for the Straw Market. So we're hoping to just keep it simple. The reason why we're hoping to have both parcels rezoned is because MVED does require that I have a separate office for closing. And so one of the units in the basement of the Straw Market would be the office to close the car deals. And so that's why we need to rezone both parcels instead of just the vacant lot. So to answer the question, we're hoping to have right around 10 cars for retail at any given time, and then have the rest of the vacant lot be parking for the park next door and for the Straw Market. And as we've already discovered over the last few months, our revenue and our traffic is growing with the Straw Market, so that parking for the Straw Market will be ideal.
Keith, a quick question though. As far as, again, I'm going to go back to Bill. What are our city's regulations on used car lots? The intent is 10 cars, but there's nothing in our ordinances that says that they have to only have 10 cars. What are regulations that would keep it the way that we would want it to be? I don't think we have any.
I'm not aware of anything like that. The
So then-
restriction would really be the size of the lot and circulation around the property, which. you know,
Nothing
I
in our
don't-
ordinances though, that I've read as far as nuisance ordinances that address that issue
Not that
at
one
all.
in particular,
And
no.
so, so
There
then-
are some things about light trespass, and that was for you, Alicia. And other kinds of noise and other concerns like that. But as far as the number of cars that they could have, I'm not aware of any particular restrictions on the
or
lot.
things that are really conducive to a used car lot. More about private residents, but not used car lots.
Could I ask a question about that? So if we do get approved for the CP1 or CP2 zone change, from what I saw from that list, used car lot would have to be a conditional approval. Could you
That's
put a
correct.
condition upon that approval that says I can't have any more than, say, 12 cars at any given time for retail?
No,
You couldn't condition that?
unless it was already in the code that
No.
we could, and it's not. So
And we can't do things retroactively. If it's not in the code right now, that's another thing for the commission to remember. You can't go back and make things, now we want you to adhere to these student rules. If it's not in place, when you give that approval, they get whatever it doesn't matter. And intent, and you want, unfortunately, in today's society, you want to say, everybody's going to do what they say they're going to do, but, and that's not to say anything, but, if there's not ordinances or things that govern uses, then whoever has it gets to do what is allowed.
It's kind of all or nothing. I mean, when you approve something, everything that's allowed in that zone change
Yes,
is allowed.
unless the
And-
rules are
and
already there.
You can't go back and say,
No.
well, we'll allow everything but this or that.
Yeah.
It's a all or nothing.
It
And
has to-
that's what makes making these decisions on behalf of the city or making these recommendations a really weighty matter.
Right.
That's
And
absolutely
that's
right.
why it was really pushed at the beginning saying, okay, if Nick does do this, great. And we would hope that he would be successful. But the key point is the used car lot may or may not be there forever. That's the big thing. And that's why I gave you the list and I hope you guys look through it
Yeah.
to see if that's what
Well,
there. And
and
then
really, there needs,
Can we bring up the things that people are worried about specifically? Like, I'd love a bowling alley. That's fine. Just kidding. Like, I looked at the list, but it's like, what are people worried about? The vape shop possibility?
the vape
Are
shop
we-
have to also think they can't have a vape shop within so many feet or miles of a school.
it fits. Jill, when I looked it up, you can actually have a vape shop there. It's far enough away from the school.
Okay, well,
But just again, if it were me, and my concern will be when if it got approved or if it's appealed and comes to city council of, we don't have anything in place that, because we've never had a used car lot in the city of Pleasant View that I know of, to regulate, making sure that it meets what we're looking for in Pleasant View City. There you go. There's my.
So
two
can I make a
Can you tell
comment
me-
here?
Oh, sorry.
And my intentions would be to, oh, sorry, somebody else spoke.
I
No,
just
I'd like
have a
to,
question. Sorry.
There's a lag, sorry.
I know. Question on if we're concerned about 10 cars or 20 or 30, like if he fills the whole thing up with cars, are we worried about the looks of that? Like, what is that a big concern? Because to me, if it's going to be a car lot and a parking lot, I don't see much of a difference if he wants to put more cars. It's
Where's your parking? Where's the people coming and going? It's right next to a park. There's not a parking lot for people to come. It's right next to pickleball courts that get full. It's
But is
on a
it his
busy
responsibility? I think it's sweet of him to say that it could be overflow for the city. It's not.
well, there's some legal issues there that we need to be careful of.
Yes.
The city's
can't
already
use
parking
this-
on there quite a bit, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, so tell
Yeah.
me though, because if
It's
it's
not
owned by someone, how is it his
Very-
responsibility to give it, like to say people can park there? If he wants to use it for something,
He can tell people not to park there anytime he wants. It's his property.
That's what I'm saying. So what's the difference? If we're, are we concerned about the difference between 10 cars and 40 cars? Is that what the concern is? I just am trying to follow what we are
Is
concerned
it the best location for it? And it's, you know, and the possible uses, just think about those things.
Well, you know, I look at on the Planning Commission staff report, once again, under the neighborhood commercial, and it said these commercial developments will be such that they blend into the existing residential uses that they are surrounded by and that they are compatible with the neighborhood. So that's what our general plan and description says. So one thing we have to examine is, does a used car lot in that particular location blend into the existing residential use?
Does
So
the
let's
straw
ask-
market too.
Bill, let me ask a question, please.
Yes.
So if this is approved from a CP1 to a CP2, it does have to have a conditional use on it. And I don't know if I agree with Councilmember Yuri's interpretation of conditional use. As I recall from a previous life, Planning Commission can put whatever restrictions that they feel are needed, conditions. And if the applicant doesn't meet those conditions, then that permit can be revoked.
Bill just mentioned that we couldn't put conditional uses on it, on a
Yes.
commercial.
Sarah is correct. In technically, in 2008, when LUDMA was passed at the state level, it changed the way conditional uses are administrated in the city. It's an administrative thing. And if you do not have, and subsequent Supreme Court findings have upheld this kind of idea, that is that if it's not in the code and you don't explicitly say in the code what the restrictions or other strictures may be, that you have to allow it under the broadest possible interpretation and application of what's out there. And the property right always goes with the owner and not to the city. So if you say a used car lot is allowed and you don't say that there's any other requirement for parking or landscaping or anything else like that, they can have a car lot in whatever configuration they want. Now we do, like I said, we do have other restrictions as far as nuisance goes, with noise and light pollution and those kinds of things. So there are other things that we could bring to bear on this if it became a problem that way. But once you allow a used car lot or any of these other things that are available, a welding shop or anything like that, you're fairly limited as to what you can then go in after the fact and say, oh, well, no, we didn't really want 50 cars out there. We only wanted 10. And he's just gonna say, well, that's what my business needs and requires. And I'm the property owner, so yeah.
Keith, there's
And
nothing
then
in our
our list of-
ordinances that govern used car lots.
Our list of acceptable use, then we'd have to change that to be permitted instead of conditioned, correct? If I'm understanding you correct?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry, I was reading a comment.
So Bill, under our chart right now, it shows a CP1 to a CP2 is a CP1 is permitted, a CP2 is conditional use.
Okay.
From what you just said, there's no conditions on that, so it ought to be permitted if we allow it to a CP2.
Technically, yes, if we don't have any conditions already down.
Right.
Yes, and there's no conditions that are written that really govern uses of car lots.
So are
Okay,
we
then
saying we want to
I'll
write
permit
something
some-
about this? Is that what, like we,
You can't do it retroactively though. If you
Right.
approve it,
so we would
that's
have
that.
to say, if we're really concerned, which we might be, we would
It
just
has
say
to be
hold
on your
off
book.
and then write it and then say this. Who made the?
Although that looks
conditional-
really bad, just so you know.
Well, I don't know what else to do if people, we could sit here and talk about it all day back and
Yes.
forth about it. I feel
So,
like. we
If you
sort of-
remember from our conversation about the use table, when we went over each different item on the use table and we were discussing whether we should allow it or as a conditional use or not. And what we wanted to say back then was if there was any real reason why we didn't want something in a particular zone, we should just throw it out. Because it's a conditional use is not if you meet certain conditions that are to be determined, then you can be allowed. A conditional use means it is a permitted use with certain, providing that you meet the conditions that are in place at the time it was approved, right? Does that make sense? So when we went through the table, we went through exhaustively and looked at each item and said, we don't want this, we do want this, in this area, yes, in that area, no. So
this list was made by city council and it's already been gone through.
and this is the list. I'm pointing to my code. You can't see it over here. It's I promise I'm pointing to
And
it.
that's what we got a copy of. That's what I can
Right.
see right here. Okay.
Yeah, so that table that shows what's permitted and what's not, the things that have a P or a C are things we want in that zone. That's it. So if it has a C, that just means we have to allow it, but there are certain conditions that we can apply that if they're in the code. If they're not in the code already and they're not specifically and explicitly said, he can say, I don't want to do that. And we just say, okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
But you could add to the code and put
We
the
could.
conditions on me.
Yeah.
Before anything is approved. Once it's approved, you can't go back and add to the code and make it conditional. If you get something that's approved, you can't go back and then retroactively, force or implement people to adhere to now what you just added to the code. They are grandfathered in, so to speak. You can't add it later.
And our intention is to work with you guys. I mean, this is what we want to do. It's not a hidden agenda. We want to beautify Pleasant View City. We want to make this a good thing that's going to be there for decades, including the straw market. So, I mean, if we need to follow a procedure, then you bet, if code needs to be written.
So I want to
Obviously,
make sure
that's discouraging because I want to get going with it, but things take time and I want to do it right.
just a housekeeping thing really quick. I'm sorry. There's been a couple of comments and things in the chat box. I would encourage you to not put things in the chat box because they don't get put onto the public record. So if you have something to say, just go ahead and say it, wait your turn and you'll get a chance to say it. That's all.
Okay, I've got a question for Bill and Jill. You had mentioned a meeting that the citizens had said what they want their downtown area to look like. Can you tell us what came of that meeting, or what is the vision, or what was the citizen input?
Bill, could you help with that? Because all I know is the general plan, because that was before me.
When all of this was, even the general plan public comment period was before my time. But it wasn't this area. This area was never intended to be the downtown central business district. That was more out towards 2700 North and the freeway, between Highway 89 and the freeway. So that's more this area was always intended to be a little bit of a commercial center, because the straw market has been there for 60, 70 years, something like that, in one form or another. The bank was there. Now it's a daycare. There's a dental office. A real estate guy has an office there. I saw Sarah's eye twitch there a little bit.
And Bill, I can speak up to that because you're exactly right. That's what it was when we had
My
our
contact, sorry.
Sure, sure, that was your contact.
Bill, that's when we had our citizens come in and we had the neighborhood, we had all the posters and everybody spoke about it. They all wanted to kind of keep that little neighborhood feel, because once upon a time there was a gas station there. So they want to keep that little grocery store feel. You've got the real estate, the whatever. They just want what they kind of little commercial, neighborhood commercial. There's also the talk about, we have that little section right there off of the roundabout that they always thought that could possibly be developed as a neighborhood commercial. I don't know how or whatever. That was talked about, a little commercial something there, but whether it's a little business center, that was the other part that was talked about as a potential business center. But then all the commercial being left down on the lower part of the city because they didn't want to fully develop, but leave this as a smaller development. That's what the citizens spoke about at that time.
And that makes sense. And it does fit in both with the fabric of the neighborhood as well as provide some services. I love the Straw Market. We've been there several times, both for the planning commission as well as just, I needed a chocolate milk. And so I popped in and grabbed something. It's a great little thing to have just right there. And especially, after a ball game, you want to go grab a sandwich or something. What a perfect thing to have. So we want to encourage everyone who may be watching or see this later, go to the Straw Market. They're awesome.
Cinnamon rolls are to die for. We always get them up at the
To
school.
die for.
Love 'em.
We really appreciate the Cutlers coming into Pleasant View.
Yeah, they've done marvelous things with it.
Continuing the Straw Market.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's
been a lot of money and a lot of work.
Yeah, and
And there's a lot more to come.
yeah. But
Thank
we
you.
appreciate having you here.
We do have one curious thing about the list of what is acceptable in CP2 that I think is interesting. If we take two examples, one is boat sales and service.
Right.
That's
Great.
permitted. And when you think about it, okay, if they're going to have service, then they're going to have a service facility with compressors running, impact wrenches, and things like that. The used car lot will not have any of that. And yet the used car lot is classified as conditional. So when you think the biggest difference between the two, one's going to have boats parked there, the other one's going to have cars parked there. And I do believe the physical limitations are going to determine how many cars you can have, because you can't put 40 cars in a 20 car area. But
Right.
and the only significant difference is you have boats on the lot or cars on the lot. You're deleting the boat service area, and the difference is one class of vehicles rides on asphalt and the other one rides on the water.
Yeah. I think my main concern is, and maybe it's my age, and having grown up in North Ogden, is I have seen that property change hands a multitude of times through the years. And I think that's why I tend to be a little more cautious as to making sure that if that zoning is changed, whatever else could potentially be there, because time has shown that the commercial properties changes ownership sometimes fairly frequently, to be honest.
Yeah, since I've lived here, same thing. I'm 44 and that property has changed a lot. I've lived here my entire life except for a couple of years, but anyway, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, and I can appreciate the Cutlers, what they want to do and fix it up, and it could be really great. Well, they are the owners of that property, but we have to look at the other side, that if the zoning is changed and the property ownership changes in 2 years, what else could be there? And would we still be happy with that? Having that neighborhood look that we talk about in the neighborhood commercial, of blending in with the residents around.
Sure, it's tough just to take our word for it that we're going to be here forever. So I understand your concern.
I would love to take everybody's word for everything.
And really our idea is to try and maximize the revenue to let that building and that land pay for itself. So, I mean, we have rentals in the basement, a preschool going in there. The idea of doing the dealership on the side really is just to create enough revenue that we can keep the place and afford to pay for the building and lot. And then the added sales tax for the city too. I think that would be a great plus for Pleasant View, the sales tax from the car lot.
This seems like an issue that we have with, never mind, I don't know how to say it and be, it seems like if we have a problem with the things that can be allowed, why don't we make everything conditional? And why don't we have something written for every single little thing? If every time someone's going to try to change something, it's not their fault that we have to be like, well, every single little thing hasn't been given rules yet. So no, like, I just feel like that's, and maybe I'm not, so educate me, because I just don't understand how, if some things we are worried about, then why did we even allow them in the first place?
Because most people learn by mistakes.
It's measurable, something that,
So can I speak,
go for it.
please?
Wait,
Well,
whose
here's
meeting is this?
Here's a concern that I have, and I really appreciate the residential, business and aspect. And I know the council member Arrington made the comment about a used car lot in Harrisville. If it's one that I'm thinking of, I'm not impressed with that at all. In fact, to me, it's an eyesore, and I've often wondered why it is still there. Now, that's just a personal opinion. Pleasant View is a nice, quiet bedroom community, and we hope will always remain so. We wanted commercial development mostly on Highway 89 and 2700 North, and we wanted to keep our main thoroughfares, which we don't have many of. We have Pleasant View Drive and Alberta Drive. We don't really have a main street per se, like a lot of cities do. So as you're driving along Pleasant View Drive, you see home and home and home, and usually they're very large lots. And then you come to a park, and then there's a church, and then there's the Straw Market, which everybody has praised. Nick and Heidi, thank you very much. That is a very great success. And then just to the east of that is what used to be a dentist office, and then it was something else, and then it was something else, and I don't even know what it is right now, to be honest with you. So I have a concern, and Ashley, you keep bringing up why do we talk about anything? Why don't we just allow everything or not allow? This is my passion on it. We're a planning commission. We represent the city. We each have one voice and we have one vote, and we need to utilize that to what we feel is best for the community. I don't think it's a debate as to who wins or who loses. I think we voice our concerns, we wrestle with them in our minds, and then when the time comes, we make that vote individually, and hopefully with a collective end result. Does that make sense?
I think I was misunderstood. I wasn't saying let's like say yes to everything or no to everything. I was saying, why don't we just say everything's conditional instead of like, well, if we're going to say yes to a used sales car, then sorry, you're going to have to say yes to every one of these other things. That's what I was bringing up. Like we should.
Your code has to represent that you can't make conditions unless that's what is on your books. It's not written that way. Your conditionals can't happen unless you have it on, the law says the code and the zones have to be written in a certain way, and that's the only thing that you can enforce. You can't make it conditional unless you write your law that way.
So if I understand, if I understand, can I clarify?
Yeah.
So if I understand, then we would have to make all the conditions on changing a CP1 to a CP2 prior to the application.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
So for example, it would have to be on the books. So if I wanted to have a CP3, we'll say, I would have to have all the conditions in that zone for whatever use before I even apply.
So with that being said, then we don't really have a lot of conditions on there. And so maybe what we need to do is determine what conditions would apply from a CP1 to a CP2, put it in writing, put it in our ordinances. And then when we make a motion or we have an applicant come in, we know what's being allowed and what's not being allowed.
Absolutely. And you can always, the thing that I learned at the Utah League of Cities and Towns and, with the training and stuff, your code should be fluid. You should be constantly looking at your code and updating it and looking at things that you need to alter, tweak, whatever. You don't let that thing sit there for a few years and cross your fingers because people are going to come along, conditions change, things happen. You should be looking at that quarterly, constantly. Are there things that we need to look at? Are there things that are happening, trends that are happening, and things like that, so that you are ahead of the game before the game comes to you and bites you in the butt.
Correct. And even the definitions of certain uses changed throughout the years. So that's one thing that would need to be looked at.
That's
And-
what I was kind of saying in the beginning. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Good.
Sorry. I was trying to say that, like, if we are so concerned about all these little things, then we need to have already written rules. And I would rather say, let's hold off on this instead of saying no. Let's say, let's wait and make the rules and then say yes, instead of just saying flat out no, because we're scared of the other things they could possibly do, which I understand that they are possible. And I understand all of that. This is not something that needs to be said again, but I'm just saying, I'd rather say, hey, we're not really prepared for this. Let's write some stuff better than saying no, but that's just me. I'm done. Thank you.
Actually, I think you hit the nail on the head. It sounds like that's exactly what needs to happen is we need to provide those conditions in the ordinance so that when an applicant comes, they can look and see that it's a.
We ask, are there any more public hearing comments? If not, can we move that we close for a public hearing and then we have a discussion? Because right now we're just talking procedural type of things, and then we can have a discussion among the planning commission people for this item.
Can I
Thank
say
you.
one more thing before you close it? Can I
just
say
wanna thank
one more
you for
thing?
keeping honest, please, Sarah.
Just
Go
one more
ahead.
thing. I apologize. No, part of what you said, and I agree 100% of, looking at your code and, often and whatever else, but part of that code too, just remember your general plan, and that should be updated also. I think the last update was 2017. It's due for another public hearing and having people come and saying, this is what we want our city to look like. And not just, uses, but areas of where you want things too. That's just
Okay.
my 2 cents. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Bill, do we have any questions or comments from the YouTube public?
I think I've read them all in as they've come through.
Bill, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Is it because I turned away?
Fine.
Yes.
Okay, let me read it this way. How's that? My eyes aren't very good. I am in full support of the car lot. I just want to be sure that the zone doesn't allow for something different down the road that's not acceptable there. So her other idea was to change the table itself, which we're not there yet. That's not what the application or discussion item is, but her other idea, and this has been brought up on the chat, was that maybe we could add a used car lot in on the table under CP1, which would allow for it as a conditional use.
That's
So-
awesome. That's awesome. Look at Dean. I do this too. That's awesome. And this
That-
conversation, love it.
That's not the application that's before us tonight.
No.
The application tonight is for a zone change. But that's something that, Nick, if we head down that road and it doesn't look good, then that could be an option going forward. The thing is that changes the zone, that changes that zone for everywhere that's currently zoned that zone. That's a lot of zones. So if it's allowed on your property, it's also allowed on every other property that's zoned CP1. And
There's
so
your
we need to look at
caveat.
that
Pleasant View
carefully
City?
too. Yeah, we need to look at that carefully too. But
Do you have many CP1s in Pleasant View?
Yes.
There's some. There's several.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the
fine.
caveat too.
It could be fine. It could be something, CP1, a little car lot, that's fine. But it's something that we need to look at and consider separately from the application that we're discussing tonight. So
Okay.
that was a
I'll
good
make a motion.
suggestion.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing at this time.
Okay, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Does that not allow me to? Oh,
Uh,
sorry.
I'll second that we close the public hearing.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed?
I just think if we should just say if there's anything else the applicant wants to say before we close it. because it seems like maybe he wants to say one more thing.
Oh, he
So
can
I
still
think-
talk. We're just out of the public portion.
That's up to
Oh.
Keith.
We're going to close the public hearing, but the applicant still has the opportunity to address the commissioners.
Thank you.
So, Nick, go ahead.
Thank you.
Can I address the commission? I have a list of concerns. And I know we've talked about a lot of them, but this is what's on my mind. So a C2 for that area is not in the general plan. I don't know if it's in the future plan. So that's one. And then the next one is what we were just talking about in detail, is there is no current specifics on this conditional use or codes mentioned in the plan to keep. And so, and what my studies are is what I've learned is that conditional uses must be specific or they get away from what the city has intended for the area. And if you're not specific, people can pull and maneuver and find loopholes and do things. So that's a concern. And then next is keeping it hometown neighborhood commercial is what is in the general plan for that spot. And so does a used car lot fit that? And we did talk about that. What will the future bring if we open it up to C2? And then that neighborhood is a pleasant walkable neighborhood. I like the Straw Market because it's inviting to not only like cars at the big parking lot. It's not really, it doesn't seem like, like that is, pull in. It's like you can be walking along and just stop in, and it's inviting to people on the sidewalk. And I like that about it.
Alicia. Oh, sorry.
I just was
Sorry. I'll wait.
Okay. And
Sorry. No, my bad.
Like more cars, more like test drives. And I guess we already have people, going there for the pickleball in their cars in the parks and the homes, the residents. So those are just the things that are on my mind. And so if anyone has information on that, I would love to hear it.
So can I ask just a question? We are fairly new to Pleasant View. We've been here for about 3 years. I know that Woodruff's service shop was on that vacant lot for how many years? I don't know. What?
Quite a while, and I believe it was demolished in 01.
When I was, so that was when I was really little, and it was there a long time ago, and they got rid of it about 20 years ago.
92.
So before Lee McDonald bought it, they tore that building down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it's been a long, long time.
It was a two bay, small like Barker service station in North
It was
Austin.
Barker Service Station. before.
And it was zoned for a service shop? Or did zoning change after he ripped
Zoning's
that down?
changed after it. Zoning
No.
changed after it
Does anyone know
Okay.
why they changed that zoning?
One
because
thing
they didn't want it there.
They didn't want a garage right there.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind is the zones change, what's allowed in each zone. I mean, I remember when I started just taking notes, you guys were going through what things you might like in certain areas. So that it might have been permitted back then when the auto Woodruff was there. Currently it's not.
So I guess, obviously my dream is to have the car lot there. That's my number one goal. If we don't come to a resolution here as to being able to have a car lot and have that overflow parking, what does Pleasant View City see as something that would be good in that location? I had to buy that vacant lot from Lee McDonald in order to be able to buy the Straw Market building. So I'm looking at it going, do I cut this dead weight if I can't make it profitable? Or can I turn this into something that I know that I can run to be profitable? And so does Pleasant View City have an idea of what they want to see on that corner? I mean, obviously you don't want it to be a vacant lot that's just a gravel mound for
Everything
forever.
that
Is there something that you guys have talked about that would be ideal? I'm sorry, what?
I think right now it's not, I think right now it's nothing. So I don't see a different, like right now it's kind of an eyesore.
Right.
So I don't see how having, that's my personal opinion. I don't see how having some cars there in a parking lot that maybe you have paved and now it looks nice and it's not full of weeds. I like that, but that is me. I just don't think right now it's anything worse than what it is.
I want to work with Pleasant View City through this completely. And if the car lot doesn't happen, you know, I hope it happens, but I can tell there's a hurdle here. There's a hill to climb. It's not going to put a bad taste in my mouth. I want to work with the city to make something beautiful there.
So I'm going
A
to
bigger restaurant?
We've talked about that if I had the money.
So not
Restaurant,
So the question
little
is,
store.
if the question is, what does the city want to have there? There's a whole list of things on CP1 that either has a C or a P. That's what the city wants to have on that property right now.
Can I, Keith, may I speak in and from the discussion standpoint?
Please.
I've been waiting a little bit to chime in a little bit because I was back when we did the last general plan and we had the groups come in. And Bill hit the nail on the head. We marked that as CP1. The general plan calls for items that are on that list, and it's not for us necessarily to ask you how to spend your money or to invest in it. You evidently had something in mind, and you could look on there what that area is able to put in there. One of the things I do know when they were trying to set up the zones and when people were looking for areas, they argued for different areas. Some people wanted to put a used car lot down right there next to where Woody's is now, down at the entrance to down there close to Rocky, down there next to Woody's. And people came out of the woodwork and said, we don't want a used car lot down in that area. They don't want it in the gateway or the entranceway to Pleasant View. And so there was a lot of talk back then from the citizens on used car lots. And so that's probably why it's not in the CP1, it's not in the neighborhood commercial. So it really did bring in a lot of conversation from the citizens back then. And so I think there would be a lot of pushback from the citizens if there was all of a sudden used car lot right in the heart of it. I have the same concerns with Keith. As you drive up and down Willard and Pleasant, or Willard and Perry and all the way up through the Fruitland Highway, all the used car lots up and down, sometimes they get a little cluttered and they come and go. So to have that right in the heart of Pleasant View, I mean, I applaud you for making a go of it right there, and we want to go of it, but I'm not sure that a used car lot is right there. And we did have a lot of pushback from the citizens on the gateway. So I hope that this goes, but the citizens I don't see would want that at this spot. And so the feedback from me is probably not at this time. I have a bigger concern of all of the other CP2 items that if you don't make it, or you decide somebody else has a bigger pocketbook and they want something else, that's what concerns me, is down the road, what else could end up in there? And that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. I think that. So here's the question that Nick asked. What could they put there that would be pleasing to the citizens of Pleasant View? Bill, give us an idea real quick on a CP1.
Well, I think that the answer to that, and the guidance really goes back to the general plan and the language in the neighborhood commercial, Class A office space, a dentist office, a doctor's office, someplace that is supportive to a neighborhood feel, that feels like it's part of a home kind of an area, as opposed to a more heavily commercial area. We're looking at doing a CP1 along 2700 North, but right on the corner there of 600 on the north side where the patio homes are going in. That's very much going to be a CP1 kind of a circumstance where the commercial in that area is limited to a fairly narrow and restrictive set of commercial uses. And that's what the citizens have said they want to see. And, you know,
A barber shop, beauty shop is permitted.
So that's the point that everyone's on
a fruit store or stand,
A
fix it
bookstore.
shop.
the list.
There's a whole list. And I mean, Nick, you can go online and look at this. I know you already have the CP1 zone. That's the property that you own has a whole list of things, a Notion store, you know, that's what the city really wants to see, is just a small little community shop. That's what they want to see.
And I look at a lot of those type of office spaces that are for lease and have been for lease for a long time, just right there in North Ogden.
Yeah, I can't argue with that point with you at all, Nick. I mean, we've seen that. It's a terrible time to try to open a little retail establishment of any stripe. And the fact that you're making it go of a restaurant is you're the man of steel is what you are. But
and the straw market is doing really well. And it hasn't just been recent that you see a lot of vacant spots. I mean, since we've moved here, we've watched North Ogden and little cities.
It's a trend that's been going on for at least 10 years.
I wouldn't get my money back ever if I were to build a building for office space. But I obviously the concern isn't necessarily my investment for you guys. I understand what you're saying.
I mean, that definitely plays into it, though. We want to consider and be careful about your investment, because your investment is not just a financial thing. It's a commitment to the city. It's we're here. We want to stay here. We're paying our taxes here. This is our investment. And I get that. This is your dream. And these are not decisions that any of these guys ever make just lightly. They have obviously done homework and have pondered and thought very deeply and are concerned. And that's all, it's huge. So that you've got this balance here. That's why I'm glad I'm not on that side of the Zoom thing.
Yeah, to do a car lot, I don't have to invest in a building and all that infrastructure. I mean, the office is already there. So, you know, to be able to have that be revenue positive or gross positive right away is ideal for us. But I understand what you're saying.
So my concern about used car lots, and Nick and Heidi, I know you, and I will speak of your character very highly, both of you. You're wonderful individuals, and what I'm about to describe, I don't think will ever apply to you. But some of these used car lots, the cars are like clunkers, cash for clunkers, and they're an eyesore more than anything else. Now we have all new Cadillacs and Lincolns, it's okay. So that's tongue in cheek, but in reality, we've all seen those little car lots that you wonder if there's a side business going on, because the cars don't look like they have much value.
I know what you're saying. So as most of you know, I work for Carfax. So I manage all the dealership accounts in Utah. And so I know exactly what you're saying. And I know which ones succeed and which ones are profitable. The ones that keep their cars tidy and that have the right cars that fit the demographic of the area. I mean, I know what would sell well here. And I mean, I've done my homework there. So it wouldn't be a cash for clunkers lot. Again, I understand you can't just take my word for it, but that if I want to be profitable and successful there, I know what needs to be bought for this area.
No, actually, I can take your word for it. That's just me personally.
You can. Thank you, Keith.
Go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of allowing a car lot on this parcel. I'm not a fan of all of the stuff that's in the CP2 zoning. The reason why I'm a huge fan is because listening to you guys talk, from what I picked up, the last 40 years, that place has been vacant. It hasn't generated revenue. It's generated an eyesore and cost for our city. We have some citizens that want to turn that into a revenue source, not only for themselves, but for us at a minimal cost to them and a minimal risk to us. Because if we ask him to build a strip mall or anything like that, and it's not conducive for the businesses that we're saying can go there, we're stuck with another eyesore building like the one that we had to demolish in 2001 or whenever that happened. So I think what we should be considering is a way to make this work for him, to give him a shot with the least amount of risk to us and to him, because all of us stand to gain from the improved landscape and the revenue to the city as far as the sales tax. I would much rather have somebody paying sales tax on a car than on a taco on that corner.
Makes a lot
Let's
of
apply
sense.
some common sense. I mean, he's not
Absolutely.
gonna he's not gonna be building a building. He's already using an existing building, and it's in our best interest to have that whole L shape stay one owner, one piece, rather than have it annexed off into a small vacant lot that nobody can build anything on that's gonna work.
Bill,
So
can you refresh us
how do-
of what that, oh, sorry.
how do we modify this so we can work with him? What do we have to do?
Fixtures,
Because if you want-
fixtures, what you allow in that zone. And then if you want to modify it and make sure that none of the other uses happen, then you need to fix your zone.
I don't want to
in your
zone.
uses.
I don't want to zone as CP2. We already know the CP2 is out.
So
That's a
then
bad idea
you
across
could
the
even
board.
create a new zone if you needed.
I
You
have
could create a new one, or you could alter the C1 or whatever.
Yeah, and I've talked to the ombudsman, and when because I asked him about the zones of whether it's residential, spot zoning or commercial, and it kind of goes with the email that I sent out from the last rezone. We can put not conditions, we can put restrictions on whatever legislative things that are approved through city council, because planning commission just recommends. They can't.
Not unless it's on the books, though. You
Well,
can't.
from what the ombudsman's office stated is you can approve something and put ordinances with your approval for that specific. You can't, for that specific parcel. You can't necessarily say, okay, we'll approve, but have this condition and have it go back to a legislative item. They stated you can say, okay, well, we want to approve this zone, but here's your restrictions with that zone, not necessarily conditions with the permit use, the restrictions to the zone on that specific parcel.
Right, and that would have to be reflected in a change to the ordinance itself.
Yeah, the ordinance has to be changed ahead of time. You can't put restrictions that your code doesn't even have on the books first. That has to be all written.
So what I'm saying is it's a possibility of what Dean's trying to say and what you say. It just might not be the zone change. We could have, Nick could go and apply for a change or different verbiage for a text and have that go through commission and city council, and then say, okay, we will allow this, but with these restrictions.
We have to write those restrictions first, though. Or the things in the ordinance have to be in place ahead of time before the application is approved.
That's what it can be part of the approval is what I'm stating. So example, can write.
What I'd like to see happen, what I would like to see is, and there again, it's just one voice, one vote. But I'd like to see that we table this for now, that we work with our ordinances, not to eliminate the Cutlers and their car lot, but to ensure that what happens in the future is for the best interest of the city, not only presently, but in the future. So if something goes awry or astray with the car lot now, we can have restrictions on what, I guess we can't. I'm trying to think of how we can make this work for the city.
That's the thing, is that we have an application. We have an application in tonight, and that deserves to be heard on its own merits.
He can withdraw. You guys could, just because if the application's rejected, he doesn't have a time frame like or does he, Bill? Is it 6 months, or if the application's rejected or not? No.
No, we don't have a time frame to bring it back.
So he could come back in another. If Bill were to expedite this and fix some things, I had never heard of what Jill mentioned, that you and I could be totally wrong. I didn't think that you could approve things and write it as you go.
So for example, and this is what Jordan at the Ombudsman was talking to me about. He said, you could have something change and say, okay, within this zone, we're fine with it, but this specific parcel or these specific restrictions for that parcel, it's not necessarily ideal for people like me and Laurie that have to keep referring back to that specific approval because that would be part of an ordinance.
So you're saying that it would be specific to this, that he could get the C1 or C2 and that you could place restrictions on approval in city council? Is that what you're saying?
It's not.
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
No, I think it has to be on your books ahead of things.
Before.
I can.
You can, because they wouldn't exist if we hadn't already done it. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
These rules got there because we put them there. We can fix them.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Nick, I have a specific question for you.
Yeah.
Are you planning on curb and gutter and asphalt?
So
Or
curb
you-
and gutter's already there. And we've already paved the park strip, done a new mailbox. Right now we're putting down road base. That's already happening just because we want to make the lot look presentable and make it better for parking. We will definitely add asphalt as we can afford it. So that's a big spend, and that would definitely be in our future plans to just continue that asphalt all the way across from the Straw Market. And there is already drainage set up there too. So it really wouldn't be a lot of development or engineering that needs to go into it. It would just be pouring on top of that road base, the asphalt, when we can afford it.
See, so that would be a condition we would put in, that if we was to make a recommendation for approval, it would be under the condition that you put asphalt.
Could you give me a time frame on that? Like within 2 years, I get it asphalted or something of that nature?
It would have to be written into the code. It would have to be those type of things. You can't just, you can't conditionally approve things that
Especially
what
not
Bill mentioned
legislative
before.
matters.
It's not. You can't
I
conditionally
understand.
approve things like that. And it would actually be against, we would be in a lot of trouble if we tried to put those kind of restrictions on you.
Okay.
Legislative matters really are just a straight up or down vote on the merits, and it's
Yes.
pretty broad discretion is given to planning commissions and to city councils to make these decisions, but they are just a really binary yes or no kind of thing.
You can
And
tell we're a
it's-
small town. We spent a lot of time on this issue.
And you know what? Honestly, the small towns are where the time gets spent on this kind of thing because we have relationships with these people, and it's hard to look them in the face and say, I love what you want to do, but there's a whole set of baggage that you didn't bring, and it's not your fault, but we all have to deal with.
Right.
And you know, Nick's been nothing but great to work with. Seriously, he's a stand-up guy, and we all know that. What
Thank
he's
you.
done down there is been great for the city and great for that little neck of the city as well. And we love it. We want him to succeed. The question before us tonight is this the right time, and is this the right place for this zone to go in? And that at the end of the day, that's the question. And again, you guys make a recommendation to the city council. They will all have access to a recording of this. Everybody in the world will have an access to a recording of this. Hello, whoever's watching, 10 people now. And it's they'll appreciate our deliberations. They'll appreciate what we've been through, and this has been not an easy thing. Now, having said that, we can work with Nick and get to a place where there are other things that can be considered, that we can help him out and get him where he wants to be, including the suggestions of changing some of the language of the code, which just is one letter really, to change that from an N to a C in that table, and that gets him where he wants to be. So these are all relatively simple things but again, the application and the question before us tonight is, do we want a used car lot, or do we want this property to be changed to CP2 tonight? Well, it would be approved by the city council.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Are we making that recommendation that it be approved by the
That's
city
right.
council?
Can I ask a procedural, is there any advantages
because we can either approve, we can recommend approval, we can deny it, or we can table it if we think that there's any more information we can get, or there is a fourth, if we table it, or he can actually withdraw it pending us doing any action. Is there an advantage to any of these? You know, because there's talk that we can go and do some procedural type of things. Are there any advantages to the applicant? I know we're trying to work with him. That's what some of the people are recommending. Are there any advantages to the applicant of us taking one of those 4 actions?
Well, this is what I would say is that, and this is completely up to Nick, and you've been very patient throughout all of this. I don't know, Nick, I don't know who you're sitting next to. She's very lovely.
Heidi, I'm his wife.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi.
You guys have both been very patient as we deliberate through these things. It's kind of like we're holding your future in our hands and we're deciding whether or not you get to live or die. And
yeah,
it's nerve-wracking. What I would say is that we could consider doing if you wanted to withdraw, because I think you're kind of seeing where this is going, and you can anticipate that the conversation at the city council is going to go along the same kinds of lines. If you wanted to resign, we could shift this application and do a no fee switch of application here over to a ordinance change, a text amendment to the ordinance, and get that whipped into shape in the next little bit. And it wouldn't charge you anything. It wouldn't cost you anything, just a little time and some staff time so that we can make sure we got all our ducks in a row that way.
With no guarantees that that will pass.
No, there's no guarantees in any of this. And I made that clear to Nick right from the very first conversation we had about this, that I told him this would be an uphill battle, and that, you know, what you're asking for it's a big ask. And, but the softer ask might be, and after having this conversation with you guys and seeing where it's going, the softer ask might be, let's change the CP1 table to allow it as a conditional use, and then beef up our conditional use requirements for a used car lot.
Okay.
We can make a commitment that we'll put that on the agenda. So this isn't going to hang out there for a long time. We'll try to get.
And we'll work closely with Nick to make sure that nothing that's required isn't onerous or difficult or going to hamper his business. But we also want to make sure that the interests of the city are protected, to make sure that there's no nuisance and there's the number of cars on the lot are limited, and you know, just general gentle kinds of restrictions like that allow you to do your business but not have a huge impact on the community.
I love it. I think that's great. And again, I've said it a few times, we'll work with you with what you guys want in every way.
You've been great, Nick.
You are great. Thank you very much.
So do I need to make a motion to withdraw, or do I get to make motions? I'm not on the
You
council.
don't get to make a motion, but if you just state for the record that you'll withdraw the application with the understanding that you'll continue to work with staff on those text changes, we can get that done.
Can you just repeat again? He wouldn't have to pay again for the.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask him to pay, because if he withdraws, it doesn't technically go to the council and all of that other stuff. He doesn't get a decision. So it's just a shift in the application.
I wouldn't want him to pay.
No.
Times for
And
this.
he didn't pay a whole lot for what was it, $100 plus the noticing and all that?
$350.
$350. So it's not a like $1,000 or whatever.
No, I appreciate that.
But we can waive that for you going forward, and we'll work with that angle with you.
You bet.
Great. I think this is a great plan. So yes, I'll make my wish to withdraw for now.
Okay, and we'll bring it back as a text amendment.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And I'll just continue to work with Jill.
Yes.
Okay, great. Which you've been fantastic. You're so prompt with your emails. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll have it
Thank
on
you.
the agenda for our next meeting, and we'll discuss, make sure that whatever we want to have allowed in CP1 or CP2 is done, and that it's done in a way that's pleasing to the city and to the applicant, and with a possibility or probability that it'll pass city council.
Keith, make sure that you have the ordinances reflect what the zone is too. The ordinances have to reflect that too, and what is allowed and stuff.
Right.
To
Yeah, we
support
would
each
change
other.
that in the whatever section.
But we'll also have to look at all the other CP1s and make sure it's still compatible with our other CP1s.
Right.
Yeah.
And we
That's what
can,
I'm- we'll do our due diligence.
yeah, we can wordsmith the thing so that it fits. It will kind of be, well, I'm not gonna say it. It'll be good. It'll be
Yeah,
good.
you
It's
don't
gonna
want
be
to
good.
say that for the
We're not-
city, not pay.
It's gonna be good for everybody. Everyone's gonna be happy.
Nick and Heidi,
Sorry for this
thank-
extended meeting. Thank you.
No, you're good. Thank you very much.
These
this is
discussions
short.
are healthy.
This
No,
is
Nick,
short.
this is a good, healthy discussion. This is a
I
good
would love
thing.
to be a part of these kinds of meetings. I don't know what
Well,
it takes to
jump
get
on
on.
YouTube anytime, man.
Well, I mean, being a part of the city and planning and stuff. I think it's great.
I
Okay,
think you just, I think you
You're
just
awesome.
dropped an application. We all heard it. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and
Bye-bye.
this item, do we have to do anything official, Bill?
no, if he's withdrawn his application, which he stated on the record that he is, then we're good on that.
Good. Then we're done.
Hey, Nick, I will send you an email tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Jill.
All
Bye,
right,
everybody.
thanks.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
All right, the administrative item on agenda, item number 4, is discussion animals being allowed in different zones. Jill, are we ready to do this, or would we rather table this? We've gone a long time, but I'm still good for an hour or 4.
Well, it is up to you guys. First, I want to tell you thank you for the good discussion we just had. That was great. I appreciate it. About the animals, if you want to discuss about the chickens and the roosters and the bees, let's go for it. If you want to table it, we can table it, whatever works.
Commissioners, what do you want to do?
Discuss it. Why not?
I
You
just
know?
asked for a restroom break, if that's okay.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
I've got another Zoom meeting at 8, so I'm a little limited in time, but I can just bow out anytime through that.
Can we just talk about it real quick and not just kind of talk about it quick until, you know what I'm saying? Be done at 8, but not have it be a decision, you know what I'm saying? Just,
It's not just
It's just a discussion.
just
I say, discuss it. And I'll just, 30 seconds.
I
Okay.
think we had a 5-minute break, but we're okay. This is a discussion that's going to go in 15 different ways.
And there's only 9 of us, so that's gonna be interesting.
That's less than a minute per way, so let's get it going.
Yeah.
I learned more about chickens, roosters, and bees than I ever thought I would know about them.
Which came first?
Don't ask.
So Jill,
The bee did.
uh,
The bee came.
Rooster.
since you're the chicken expert, Jill, like for a family of 6, how many chickens would they need in order to supply, I don't know, an average of what they would use?
To make a living or for dinner?
For breakfast. I don't know. For breakfast. I mean, how many eggs do a chicken lay? I mean, we had chickens once. I remember it was really a pain in the butt, and it was easier to cross Washington to Smith's and buy them than take care of those chickens. But
Let me tell you the type of research I
okay,
because I didn't necessarily see how many chickens could provide for a family of 4 or 6 or whatever. What I did is I looked at what health and for both the chicken or the animal, we'll say animal because I didn't quite, for the bee and the rooster as well as the humans that would be taking care of the chickens or living close to the chickens. So, but if anybody wants chickens, I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't mind because I go through about 18 eggs a week.
The problem is how many, and right now the ordinance allows 40, up to 40.
50.
Okay, 50.
that's a lot of chickens on a 3rd-acre backyard.
In an RE 15,
Anyone wants
can we
that?
modify that, Bill?
The current code says RE20 for family food production. That means just your family, not
Right.
overabundance. If it's for commercial purposes, it would be 5 acres.
And family food production, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not allowed in RE15, right?
No.
It is not.
So none of these animals are currently allowed in RE15.
Currently, and it does, currently it's allowed in RE20, our A2 and A5, but here's the caveat. The setbacks don't always work for all RE20 lots because of how the lots are laid out. So not every person in RE20 can have chickens. Just saying that.
And is that something we can talk about too? Like, is that, I mean, if we're talking about changing the rules, let's, 25 feet, well, it can be 15 feet. I mean, who made up these arbitrary distances?
Well, when you've got chickens and they are being cooped up, I think you have to have a certain amount of property you're fencing, even for humane purposes.
Right, but if you have 6 chickens, it doesn't, I would think it wouldn't have to be 25 feet. It could be 15 because you have 6 chickens. It's not going to make as much smell. It's not going to be as big of a impact on your property with the amount of poop and stuff like that. Like that kind of is what I'm saying. Like if you're changing the amount from 50, which is what I would like to talk about, like 10 chickens, 10 to 15. I don't know how many people want 10 to 15 chickens. I would say 6 to 10 chickens would give you enough for your family, depending on your family size.
Oh, that's the answer to a question I had. So thank you.
You're welcome. And that's the thing, is like, of course it's easier to go to Smith's and buy eggs. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because what if Smith's doesn't ever have eggs? I mean, it's just being self-sufficient is what I'm.
And I do understand
for.
If you want me to look and see how many people, or an average family of 4 or 5, how many eggs they would use.
I don't eat any eggs. I think they're gross.
But
I'll bet you.
Then you have to go to IFA to go get the feed for the chickens.
so one thing before we continue to keep in mind is 2 things. First, keep in mind if we do change the zone or the ability to have chickens or any type of animal at that much in any zone, once it's permitted and someone gets it, and then we decide, it's not what we want, we're going to take that off the book, then grandfathered in. So we can't say, okay, we don't allow them anymore, even though they were allowed when you got them. You need to take them out. We can't do that.
I understand. I know people right now who are not allowed to have them, and they have them. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Google says, by the way, that there are 289 and a half eggs per person per year in the US. It's basically 1 a day.
unless you're an egg lover.
Poor chicken.
Or an egg hater. Maybe that's an average.
Another line is we want to have the line drawn somewhere. For example, and I know this is a dumb example, but it makes complete sense. If I wanted to live by the beach and I decided to move in Ogden and I want that beach next to me, it's not going to quite work. Does that make sense? You kind of have to go where it's allowed. With that in mind, it doesn't mean that we can't change this. I'm just saying keep in mind, because once you allow it and these people get animals and we decide not to, it's harder to say, okay, you can't have it anymore because we changed it. So that's why I'm saying keep it in mind. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
If we're gonna modify or talk about modifying to allow animals, chickens, bees on an RE15, can we stipulate the number to be considerably less than what's allowed in an RE20?
That's what I was saying to do. Yes, that's what I would hope for. I mean, I would be silly to ask for 50 chickens and growth and not enough room.
Okay.
I vote no.
To keep it at 8 o'clock, we have. So, go ahead.
Question. So if we're going to go ahead and say, if you have a RE15 versus a RE20 or any other RE, it should be if you are in a property owner in Pleasant View that has a single family residence, your chicken quantity, your duck quantity, your bee quantity needs to be X. We shouldn't be financially discriminating against people that can't afford the acreage.
And
That's not right.
I understand that. That's why I did the research both on the health of a person and the health of an animal, to be honest. For example, the recommendations that I looked through. I looked through this. Utah State University had a lot of information on chickens. Same with the CDC. I looked at also the Department of Health drinking water because, for example, we have a bunch of wells, and if you didn't know, if you're within certain zones of that well, you can't have any animals, or it's very small quantities that are even available that you can have. The reason being is is the discharge that goes back into the ground. It does affect our water. So with that, the health of us as humans need to keep that in mind. We aren't posting the map of all the zones for the protection of those wells. We don't want everyone to know where these wells are for safety of the drinking water that we have. So, you know, if you would like a copy, you can come in. We just won't put it out there again for the safety of the drinking water for our residents.
It's for terrorist reasons.
Exactly. So, and I also looked at North Ogden and Weber County and Clinton and Clearfield, and I actually called IFA and Cal Ranch about what does a chicken need? What are the issues that they can have? And beknownst to me, apparently chickens can get very stressed out and have problems laying eggs. I didn't know that. So they said chickens technically don't need tons of room if you need to have a small amount of area to have them occupied, but to best keep the coop clean and for the optimization of a chicken, you need to have a good amount of room for them to be. Most of the time, they can't just be kept in a coop. The best is for them to be able to get out of the coop and, what do they call it, peck at gardens, which is fine with us. But the concerns that I've found both with all of these same places that I've been able to find information on chickens, on what will help them, what will work. The concerns are, again, you have to look at the worst case scenario. Someone doesn't clean their coop very much, and it can be very smelly. I don't know if any of you guys have had chickens. If a coop is cleaned out on a regular basis, it smells horrible. There's spillage with food. The big problem, rats. Rats come because of the food, and what comes with rats, other nuisance issues that, I've talked to Barb. The biggest concern with the chickens and rats and things like that are raccoons and snakes, things that come after these chickens, or even the animals that come for the food. That's another issue that could come up.
Birds of prey are constantly looking for chickens.
A lot more area to have chickens. We're also possibly increasing that aspect as well. Right now, I get an average about 2 complaints a month on chickens. So, that's just kind of what we've got. Again, if the coop's not clean, the chickens aren't taken care of, the chickens can have diseases. And if they get close to people and I don't know if they bite or peck, I'm not that part, I didn't get too far into. But it's the same like with dogs. You're liable for anything that happens with the chickens on your lot. So if it's so close to a fence or a neighbor or a property line, and it does create problems, is that like the city won't be involved in, but is that something that we want to expose to everybody? I mean, things to think of.
Will be involved because it's against the ordinance. So
It's an
somebody can-
enforcement issue, yeah.
So there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, okay, we want to allow it everywhere. Another thing to think of with all of this is, for example, if we'll go into bees really quick. If I knew that there was going to be a hive next door, I would be fine with it because I'm not allergic to it. But however, I know people that are very allergic to bees. I have a brother-in-law that is. He moves next to a house that isn't supposed to allow bees. That's the type of research that people do. If they're, not everybody, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know I could have chickens in North Ogden. I can only have, I think, one. But so some people might look for that, and that's something that they want to make sure that they're not going to have next to them, whether it's chickens, things like that. So again, that's where we have to be able to draw the line, where if it's okay at R5, like with the patio homes, there's really no place to have chickens. Maybe that's where we draw the line. I don't know.
So last week, true real life experience, my neighbor to the east has a beehive, and the queen left the hive, and 50,000 bees went to my neighbor to the west in his shed. He didn't want the bees. The neighbor to the east tried to get him back, and he's still trying to get him back because the queen is so down deep in the shed that the worker bees aren't going to let anybody near the queen. So now there's a problem going on with, we have a neighbor that doesn't want bees, but has 50,000 bees. And we have a neighbor that wants bees, but they left his hive. So those problems are going to happen.
Exactly. I mean, for like the example with the bees, right now we only allow them in A2. I know we need bees. I mean, they're good things. So what the recommendation that I want to talk to you guys about is allow them in RE20, A2, and A5. But believe it or not, I didn't know that, but the state actually has stuff on bees. And I read a lot of like Washington State University recommends with having bees that's conducive to your state, because not all bees will work well with your elevation, your conditions, and the pollen that we grow here in Utah. I mean, so that's one thing. Bees actually do better when their hives are not constantly messed around with. If you're a beekeeper, you know everything that needs to be done. You're educated, I would hope, before you get bees. You make sure everything's done accurately. But if you have someone that's walking next to a bee hive or colony constantly, bees don't attack until they feel threatened or something's happening to their hive. What if we have a small area and we allow these bees and there's not much room for anything, and the ball hits it because the neighbor's playing around and they come get it and something happens. Again, we want to make sure that the bees, because we want what the bees produce and help reintroduce them into Pleasant View, hopefully to stay. We want to make sure we take care of the bees as well, not just because we want the honey out of it. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we also need to look at. If we just have bees or chickens just to have them, and then it creates more issues, is that really what we want? So that's the type of discussion I wanted to have with everything that I sent out.
There's so much new information that's surfacing, at least new to most of us, that I personally don't feel like I'm in a position with sufficient knowledge to even make any intelligent recommendation at this point. It seems like there's a a lack of sufficient information and understanding about this environment. It's a lot more complex than I thought. Thanks to you, Jill, for the work that you have done to offer your inputs.
It's been great.
Well, what are your guys' thoughts? That's a big thing.
So where do we want to go? Do we want to discuss changing? Or do you want to shelve it? What do we want to do?
Shelve it. I think it's good to think about and good information. I don't think we've coming to a decision. I know that it has, like, it's 8:04 now, so.
That was really good
Sorry
information.
for Julie. I see Heather.
That gives us something to think about and yeah, think about, study about, learn about.
One of the thing to keep in mind, I just looked up how many eggs a chicken lays in a year, and it's 250. So really, you just need one chicken per person per household. And since the average household size in Pleasant View is 3.5, we'll just say 4 chickens max.
The reason you would say
Like
just
that, Dean?
four
You like that logic?
is because it's because they die and they don't all lay that much, and some raccoons will come and eat them. So I mean, like, that's why I was saying 6 to 10 is because then you have.
Okay, I'll throw in the same thing with that logic, but why do we start allowing it into the RE15 when we moved in not to be near chickens and everything else? And now we're gonna get the raccoons and the varmints all coming into the neighborhoods.
Good point too. Good point.
Yeah, we're gonna get the raccoons, and so we get all the varmints coming. And so those things cause nuisances, and we're already dealing with those things. And so what, and they'll say, no, we don't allow roosters, but roosters that aren't allowed anyway, and the neighbors do have roosters. And so it just creates things that people now are gonna have to call and complain about, and it just builds upon itself. So if we started in RE15, I know people have them anyway, but let's not open that door. If people wanted those chickens to start with, they should have researched which areas they should have built into to start with.
Just kind of what Dean said, you shouldn't be discriminated against because you can't afford all this acreage. That's how I liked how Dean said that. It's true. Like, if you don't have an ability to provide for yourself, then there's going to be more chaos and more problems that we're going to have to deal with communities raiding other people's houses because they can't have enough food for themselves. So that's where I'm coming from.
And this is the type of, sorry, I've got the hiccups. It's not funny, Dean, it hurts.
Hysterical.
But there's, you know, if I may chime in just really quick, if it's not allowed in that zone, there's other alternatives to look at too, instead of just, remember with the used car lot, part of the concern was everything else that it allows, right? So you don't want to just make a blanket thing, be thoughtful and methodical, and maybe like the whole concept of a community garden type of thing, right? So you have a community garden, and I don't even know if it's possible to have a community quote family farm or something like that, or something that the community goes in on. I don't know. That maybe that sounded really silly, but just a thought.
I liked that idea.
We call it Smiths.
Right?
Well, you know,
That is the family farm.
But you know, just a thought. The consideration of, you know, allowing it in zones is one thing, but then also the consideration of certain areas that you could have a couple beef, but, you know, some chickens or something like that, a community quote farm. I don't know.
You know, and there are a lot of people that are on those 5-acre lots that don't know what to do with all their acreage, and they're kind of annoyed with their acreage. This is just like buzz I hear around town. So, you know, with community gardens, I know that a lot of people donate portions of their land for the city and for that purpose. And maybe there might be somebody that'd be willing to, or maybe a couple neighbors that would like want to like donate land to do a community coop or something like that. That's
what about a used car lot?
Not a complete no.
You know what? There might be some individuals who would let people use their land and they were just paid or
a used car lot.
Eggs, you
A
know?
used car lot. That little lot right there by the straw market. Perfect.
Oh, so right there, do a community farm on it.
It's just a dirt patch right now.
It's not zoned for that.
If somebody wants to put bees in my
know.
yard, they're welcome to. I have an acre of ground. Anybody who wants to put a hive, they're welcome to. Chickens,
It's
my
just
dog
a
will.
thought. The idea of a community, area farm.
I like that
Out
idea.
right by that barn, Keith.
What barn?
Yeah, right.
Oh, that barn across the street from the city office building.
I'm finishing the meeting. I don't know why.
Yeah, that one would be nice to see it come down.
I'm going to
The barn?
need to check out.
Hey, I think we ought to adjourn. It's late. And we'll discuss this further. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with the animal discussion tonight.
Well,
Everybody in agreement?
It seems that with the various critters that might be considered, there are some advantages and there are some critical issues that could cause some real problems. I don't know how we can even proceed forward with the discussion until we've identified the advantages and disadvantages of each critter that we might consider. I don't know how we do that.
Okay, I agree. Can we adjourn? I love you folks. You're great. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Did you have a motion and a vote?
I make a motion, we adjourn, right?
Second that
I
motion.
second the motion, and I think Keith went ahead and hit the gavel on his way to the back.
Right?
Okay.
With his feet there.
Yeah.
He's using the toilet as the gavel.